In the episode 19, I talked about Koreans' perception about dogs. Yes, Koreans used to eat dogs, and some still do, but overall we didn't fail to recognize and appreciate the loyal character of the animal, and in most stories from past to present, dogs usually play a positive role. The same cannot be said about today's subject, cats. To be fair, even the most ardent cat lovers wouldn't deny cats are very different kind of animals from dogs. Independent and individualistic, cats would view humans as equal or even subordinate. That is the very charm of the cats, but there should be a reason why the choice of a pet from most fictional shady villains is often a cat rather than a dog. In the Confucius understanding of traditional Korea, knowing your social standing and fulfilling it loyally was deemed as the highest social virtue, and cats don't fit in the picture very well. Even though there have been cat lovers in the history, at least 2 Joseon dynasty kings are recorded to have kept a cat as a pet. The overall perception of the general public remained cats are ungrateful animals that would not hesitate to take a revenge on humans when wronged. There is even a superstition that is in paranormal realm. The details vary region to region, but the general idea is if a cat comes around the house in morning, the dead body of the deceased would stand up or even move around. It's not that the dead one coming back to life, but a cat playing with a soulless body like a puppet. So the household with a cat would lock it away the first thing when a family member passes away. Today, there are a significant number of cat lovers in Korea too. One reason is in the highly urban and confined lifestyle in modern Korea, cats are deemed much more suitable choice of pet than dogs that call for more space and activity. Through cat lovers campaigns and positive exposure on popular cartoons and social medias, the old negative view on the animal is gone to a large extent, but probably not completely. So, here are 5 allegedly true stories about cats reflecting the changing attitude towards the animal over time. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. It's an old tale from Gyeongju area, said to have taken place in the late Joseon dynasty. There lived a young couple with a cat and a dog. They belonged to the wife who'd been keeping them from before marriage. As for the husband, he was more tolerating the furry members of the household than anything else for his wife's sake. One day, the dog and cat acted out weirdly. The cat jumped around and over the steaming cauldron in the kitchen, and the dog pushed his mistress over and made her drop the dinner she was carrying into the room. The husband outraged over the animal's insolent behavior. He gave away the cat to his brother to eat and beat the dog hard before chasing him away from home. The wife was very sad, but in the strictly patriarchal world where one's husband was the rule and the law, she couldn't do anything much. The brother of the husband boiled a big pot of water to cook the cat, indeed as his brother suggested. But the cat wouldn't go easily and bit and scratched the brother hard. He screamed and struggled about to get the cat off, lost his balance, and fell into the boiling pot himself. The husband blamed the cat for his brother's death. He searched around the village for the cat for days, and in the end, caught and slashed it with a sickle to death. But soon, the young couple faced a terribly weird consequence. Their baby son started crawling and yelling like a cat and glared at his dad. Even his face seemed resembling a cat more and more. The couple sought a doctor and even a shaman, but none seemed to be able to help their son. One day, an old monk knocked on their door. It was a common practice for Buddhist monks to go around door to door for small donation of money or food. So the husband came out to meet him with a small bowl of rice, but was surprised to find what was following behind the monk. It was the dog he beat and kicked out, now clearly limping. The old monk rubbed the dog and said, "This poor old creature guided me to this place. I believe he sensed something was wrong with his old master and mistress." The husband explained what had been going on with the tears streaming down his face. The monk nodded and explained, "When I first met the dog, he was not only physically injured, but also poisoned. I checked on him and found a poisonous centipede in his mouth. It was a miracle he was still alive at all." And to the surprised face of the husband asked, "I have a hunch. Would you mind to let me look around your kitchen?" The monk looked around the kitchen and lifted a stack of firewood on the corner. Behind it was a giant centipede and dozens of its young, dead. The young couple screamed at the terrifying sight and stepped away despite of themselves. The monk opened his mouth. "I believe your cat and dog acted out weirdly, because they noticed the centipede spitting poison into the rice pot. They were trying to save your lives." The couple shed tears of belated guilt, and the monk continued, "It's not over yet. The dog has forgiven you, but the cat's resentment against you is so great that it possessed your baby son." The husband hung onto the monk desperately. "Tell us what we should do. Have a pity on us." "There's nothing left for humans can do. But the dog here might help you. Feed him well for him to regain his strength. Leave him and your baby in the room, and the rest should stay away from the house," the monk said. So the couple cooked a whole chicken soup for the dog, and as the monk instructed, left him alone with their son. After a heavy silence, suddenly a shrill scream of a cat ripped through the air. The husband wanted to jump in to save his son, but the wife stopped him, reminding him of the monk's instruction. The loud bark of the dog and screeches of the cat continued inside, and then, suddenly, boom! With a sound of explosion, the whole house was engulfed in a flame. The couple desperately tried to get in to rescue their son, but the fire was already too intense and could not but look at the raging fire helplessly. When they saw a silhouette moving out against the red flame. It was their dog, dragging the baby out by his shirt. The couple jumped up to them with the tears. The husband held the dog in his arms and cried, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault." The dog licked his face and quietly died away, having used all his energy. Their son grew without any further incident. They buried the dog in a sunny spot and paid a visit with their son regularly to express their thanks. My grandfather, my mom's father, passed away when I was 5. 3-day funeral took place in his family home. I was too young to understand what it was all about, and naturally didn't know Grandpa's body was laid behind the screen either. I just bowed twice towards it as my parents instructed me to. But the moment I stood up again from the bow, the screen fell, revealing Grandpa, still all wrapped and tied with hemp fabric, sitting up. I fell on the floor with a shock, and my parents, aunts, and uncles were too, all no less shocked. Just my grandma seemed to be keeping perfectly calm. She called out the youngest uncle's name and said, "We seem to have a guest over the roof. Invite him in and feed him well before he goes." Uncle didn't seem to understand what Grandma was talking about, but nevertheless went out to check on the roof, and found there a cat. He dragged it down, and Grandma threw some of the food from the offering to Grandpa. The cat picked it up in its mouth and disappeared. And with that, the body of Grandpa lied back down again. But it left me traumatized a while afterwards. Later I told this story to an acquaintance with a spiritual gift, and he explained that cats have natural spiritual connection and sometimes intend to harm a human soul. He then explained the reason Grandpa's body shoot up was to warn us the presence of such a cat nearby. I must say I still hate cats to this day. My dad served in army as a non-commissioned officer for 30 years. His first post in 1980 was in the base at the border between Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do, then a countryside far away from everything. One night he was sleeping back in his flat outside the base. A call woke him up that a fellow officer on the night shift had to leave for an urgent family issue, and he'd have to fill in for the night. Still a newbie officer was my dad, so he put on his uniform without a grumble and headed off to the base on his bicycle. There wasn't even a street lamp in the country road, and he could only guide himself by his army-issue flashlight. About halfway to the base, he saw a woman standing on the side of the road ahead. She dressed in black and had longish hair. My dad doesn't believe in ghosts and just assumed she must be a villager from nearby. But then the woman stopped him. "Excuse me, could you give me a ride, please?" she said. Her destination was somewhat to the direction to the base. On such a rainy night, with an unpaved road turned into muddy swamps, he could not casually turn her down. So he didn't probe any further and agreed to give her a ride. She sat sideways on the luggage carrier behind the seat and lightly held onto Dad's sides. Dad had to pay all the attention to ride on the slippery and bumpy wet road and almost forgot about the woman behind. And about 10 minutes later, he arrived at the gate of his base. He told the woman that she'd have to walk from there. But she didn't say anything. Dad turned his head to find there was nobody. But something was still holding on his waist. He looked down to find a big black cat. At his surprised scream, the cat also screeched and disappeared into the night. He can't be sure if the cat tricked him to save him or harm him, but the instant left him so stunned he felt uneasy for quite some time to commute back and forth on the same route. Apparently still dislikes cats to this day. I live in an apartment block, and there used to be a lot of stray cats around. Their target was the disposed food in the bin, and I found it pitiful to see the cats hanging around the smelly bins to catch a bite. So even though I was busy preparing for the upcoming SAT, I joined a small community effort to feed them proper food. Koreans often call such cat lovers as cat moms. I got particularly close to a couple of them, and I call them for their colors Yellowy and Blacky, the first female and the latter male. Most residents of the apartment disliked these cats. They complained how creepily they would cry all night long whenever they went in heat, and that they made mess around the bins. One day I noticed Yellowy the cat was carrying babies, and bought a special tuna can for a pregnant cat. But she didn't turn up that evening on our usual feeding time. Next day, I get to hear from a resident that she saw a yellow cat jumping into the semi-basement of the apartment building through the ground-level window, and should be still stuck there. The semi-basement level was usually left empty and neglected apart from on some special occasions. I asked the security of the block to open the door to the basement so that I could check in, but they flatly refused. The security people hated the stray cats, and I suspected they had all the intention to let the poor cat starve to death there. Maybe I was too dramatic, but I submitted the situation to the production of an animal rescue TV program. But even with a visit from the television crews, the security still refused to open up the basement, calling stray cats being pests to the residents. But the story reported on TV had its impact, and soon the apartment management had to face a demo from pro-animal rights groups. When they finally gave in and let us into the basement, we could not find Yellowy, or any other cat for that matter. The management explained away that the cat must have got out, but the windows from the inside the basement situated almost as high as 3 meters, and there was no way for a cat to be able to climb up the smooth concrete wall and escape by itself. The residents' community was not happy with all the recent attention the apartment block had got, and they swiftly came up with a solution to the whole stray cat problem: to call in a stray animal control, catch all the cats, and find a home for each of them. The day the animal control guys turned up was the last time I saw Blacky the cat, pressing his head against the net and growling and hissing. Yellowy was still nowhere to be found. I and other cat moms were sad to see them go, but convinced ourselves that it was for the best if they could find a home that way. A few days later, the head of residents' community put up a notice that all the stray cats caught were adopted. I soon got busier with my study and forgot about the cats a while. Since when a rumor got around among residents that a stray cat would prowl around the block, seemingly looking for food. It would not only screech all night long, keeping people sleepless, there were even reports that the cat attacked passing kids. Expecting a new stray cat having settled in our block, the good-hearted cat moms left cat food out as they used to. But strangely, the food would be left untouched for days on. The head of the resident community even brought in the pest control, but they failed to locate the cat. All the while, the nightly screeches of the cat continued. I heard it myself. I sensed something was wrong, but could not be sure what. About the time the talks about the mystery cat reached the realm of paranormal, that it might be ghosts of the cat that were caught and taken away, A fellow cat mom, a professional interpreter by profession, told me about an animal communicator from the US whom she got acquainted through animal forums. Apparently, he's pretty famous in that area and claimed to be an animal medium too. I was honestly pretty skeptical. A shaman specialized in animals? But by and by, the animal communicator took interest in the case, and because we could communicate only at night due to the time difference, and because most other cat moms were married with children and not available so late hours, the job of contacting him was given to me. He asked if I could capture the screech of the cat for him. Nobody could be sure when it might appear, so I teamed up with the interpreter cat mom to watch out in turns with a camera set towards the playground where the mystery cat was said to appear. I took the first turn and the interpreter cat mom took over at 2 a.m. But I was woken up by the call from the interpreter cat mom not long after I went to bed. I ran down and she showed me the video of the mystery cat she took. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Blackie, sitting underneath the slide in the playground, crying exactly the way he did on the day he was taken away. I ran to the playground, but Blackie wasn't there anymore. Following night, we got back to the animal communicator via messenger and showed him the video. He reacted emotionally, even wiping out tears. He then said,
"That is the ghost of the cat. He says all the cats that were caught with him are killed. It's still around to look for his wife, who was also killed innocently."
We were shocked to hear both Blackie and Yellowy were dead. We contacted the animal shelter that was in charge of the stray cats from our apartment block. Apparently, none of the cats was adopted, and as the regulation went, they were all put to sleep after a week. The news devastated me and all the other cat moms. We confronted the head of the residents' community, but she threateningly argued back.
"We have better things to do than stray cats, and you keep wasting our time. If you further spread negative rumors about our apartment block, expect a legal action from the whole community."
Retreated back empty-handed, I thought about how Yellowy went missing. Maybe Blackie was keep returning to point us out where his partner was. I picked up the small shovel and went to the playground and digged underneath the slide where the ghost of Blackie appeared. And there, I found a black plastic bag. Inside, under the layers of bags, was Yellowy. Decomposition aside, she was clearly beaten and mutilated. It was so horrible, and I don't want to describe in details. I summoned the cat moms and we decided to report it to the police. And what they found was truly disgusting. The head of the residents' community was planning to sell her apartment and upgrade to a high-end property. Fearing the market price damaged due to the negative report on TV, she instructed a concierge to catch Yellowy stuck in the basement and to get rid of her. Yellowy fought back hard, scratching and biting the hand of the concierge. He got mad and beat the poor cat with a golf club to death. Fearing the TV crews might be still around, he quickly buried the body in the shallow grave under the slide, and forgot about it subsequently. In the end, the concierge was charged and fined for animal abuse. But since there was no such a charge against the solicitation to commit murder of an animal, the head of the residence community got away free and moved into her dream high-end apartment. We reported back the whole story to the animal communicator, and upon his advice, I and other cat moms organized a little memorial ritual for Blackie and Yellowy. Blackie didn't appear again, and I want to believe the cats have finally found peace. But I'm still angry about the insufficient animal rights law, having experienced its legal loopholes firsthand. Just a little story floating around I picked up somewhere. A guy lived with his pet cat. One day he was sleeping with his cat curled up next to him. In the middle of the night, he tossed and turned around a bit wilder than usual and unintentionally hit his cat a bit hard. Still half asleep, he nevertheless realized what he did and stroked his cat, saying, "I'm sorry." To which the cat replied,
"It's okay."
"Oh cool, she's okay," he thought, and went back to sleep. Only in the morning, when he woke up, he realized that it couldn't be. That his cat replied? Could it? Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for your listening. Hope you enjoyed today's stories. When it comes to mystery or horror stories, I found there are definitely more of them about cats than dogs. Guess it had something to do with the cat's lingering shady image. So much so I could not fit in all the stories in the single episode, but I'm sure the rest will appear sometime in the future episode. Are you a dog or a cat person? I see myself leaning towards cat, but since I can hardly manage myself alone yet, I could not dare to keep one now. Maybe someday if this channel becomes viable. On that note, if you liked my work, please give me a boost with a comment and a like, and also consider subscribing to my channel and share my videos on social medias. As for my returning viewers, thank you very much. I'll come back with something new next week. Until then, take care.